Everybody back, guy. Y'all are good. Y'all are good. My name is Chris Raymer. I'm a very grateful, recovered alcoholic. I am delighted to be back. Let me get organized here. If next to the confusion around 4-step stuff, confusion around the 12-step stuff seems to be rampant no matter where you are in the world. It's amazing. It seems to be placed as a position of, what's the word? It's kind of optional. If you want to do 12-step work, you can, and if you don't have to. And this is why we're going to hit this kind of hard, luckily just for a short hour. And then we can go to dinner and you guys can swallow all of this. But, from where we come from, the people that are staying successful in AA, the people that are staying sober, for keeps, are the people that are active sponsoring folks. To work the 12 steps and then sit in the rooms and not sponsor, it's kind of like a lot of foreplay and no sex. It's like pretty soon you just get tired of the rigmarole, and it's like there's a reason that we do this. And the hardest piece to swallow is for us as newcomers to think that there will ever be a way that I can be useful. Make sense? We've been told, how many of you guys were ever told that you're worthless? You're a worthless piece of shit. You'll never amount to anything. And it's like, and then when they stopped telling us, we told ourselves that. We spent a lot of time beating ourselves up. And so it's one of the hardest things. I spent 7 years, my first foray into Alcoholics Anonymous was in the early 80s. Again, my story last night, trying to save a marriage. And I spent 7 years, hundreds of meetings, in and out and in and out and in and out. There's two things I never did. I never bought a big book because I didn't know where you bought them. Who knew? The guy opened the closet and the whole cases of them fell out, and it's like I didn't know, I didn't have a big book, and I never sponsored anybody. I never had a sponsor, and I never sponsored anybody because I'm still believing, folks. We've hit this so hard, y'all understand. At some point in our history, we became a meeting maker fellowship. If you want to get sober, you go to AA, you go to meetings, and you're going to stay sober. And some people can manage to do that, again, depending on how far the disease has progressed. But the real alcoholic, the real little dope fiend, you little crackheads that snuck into this deal, y'all, you're not going to stay sober just coming to meetings. I'll argue with anybody out there about that. There's nowhere in the book that it says that you will stay sober. Again, when we get a sponsorship situation, we'll talk about it a little bit. You got this circle triangle. I got the stamp up here. A lot of you guys have stamped your books. But in the original manuscript, the words were written on the book. God, my handwriting sucks. But you can see at the bottom of the base there, it's always at the bottom, is recovery. That's the 12 steps. Unity is the meetings. Service is what? What's our primary purpose? What are we supposed to be doing? So, and if you're in all three parts of that, you're not going to relapse, folks. That's not smoke we're blowing there. That's just the honest God fact. I can't tell you what's going to happen in your life, but I've read this 1,000 times. Some of you guys that have heard us speak for the last 10 years, every time I talk about sponsorship or working with others, I read this. This was a little excerpt. It was a Christmas article, excuse me, actually in box 459, which is the little publication out of New York. Some of y'all subscribe to it. If you're a GSR, you will automatically be given a subscription to this little newsletter. But here's what it says. It says, intergroups ask, where have all the volunteers gone? Now, this is the intergroup in New York City, where our base is, okay? The most frustrating thing about answering intergroup's phones, says Bob R., manager of the Intergroup Association in New York City, is finding an AA member willing to take a 12-step call for some sick alcoholic who has phoned for help. I mean, that's this guy's main problem, is just finding some schlupp to go help another drunk. Well, y'all understand where the problem lies here? I mean, this is unbelievable. Sometimes it takes up to 20 calls to identify just one willing volunteer. Some of the responses we hear when a live member actually does answer the phone, what's a 12-step call? I mean, what's that but crappy sponsorship, How did you get my phone number? Do you mean you actually want me to talk to someone who's still drinking? The saddest response came from a member who exclaimed, "No, I can't do it. I'm busy all day. Today is my sobriety anniversary." That boy's going to hell. Okay, but part of this problem is, why is it that we expect the newcomer to always understand this? You know, you walk in the door and you sit in a bunch of meetings, but we're not coming out of the literature in most of these meetings, so how do we know? We just assume that you're going to pick this up, that your job is to go work with another drunk. When Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob first got together in 1935, neither one of them could stay sober for Jack. Bill had a little sobriety under his belt, a few months, 6 months. He'd been trying to work with other drunks because he knew that if he didn't work with a drunk, he wasn't going to get to stay sober himself. And so he transmitted this to Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob messed with this for a few more days, got drunk. You know the story. June 10th, he finally comes back in. He has a little surgery. He's a proctologist. Y'all know that, right? He's an out-of-work stockbroker and a butt doctor. Oh my gosh, this is where we came from. You know, both good, hard-working boys. I ain't knocking it, but this guy Dr. Bob had surgery, and his hands are shaking really bad. They gave him a couple of beers to settle his hands. Trust me, if your hands are shaking and you're fixing to operate on my butt, go get a beer. I don't care. But he passes the surgery. He gets the surgery done, and by noon he's finished. He gets in his little station wagon, and that's what he had. And he drove around Akron, and he made all the amends that he wasn't going to make. I ain't going to make those damned amends. It might ruin my career. His career's ruined anyway. Everybody knows. Have y'all ever noticed that? You know, we're so anonymous in this fellowship. Oh, I don't want anybody to know. My name is Chris R. I don't want anybody to know I'm an alcoholic. Shit. All you had to do is look at the truck I was driving to know that I was an alcoholic. It was just one big dent with a license plate on the back. I found out years later, after I did it, I'm sneaking in the back door of AA meetings because I don't want anybody to know. And I found out I was on the prayer list of every church in town. My mother had put me on the... Oh, you're Chris Raymer. Thanks, Mom. Everybody knows we're alcoholics, folks. We need to get past that nonsense. Oh, I don't want anybody to know. I want everybody to know that I'm a recovered alcoholic. Because I guarantee you guys, I get a chance because everybody knows to go work with lots and lots of drunks. Some of you are so anonymous, nobody even knows where to go for help. And I'm going to encourage you to talk to me later about this tradition thing. You can practice above the tradition or below the tradition of anonymity. Does that make sense, guys? If you're at the level of our groups, we should never be anonymous. We found that out going one time when Wayne had a heart attack in our AA meeting, and they took him to the hospital, and a bunch of us went down to see him to see what we could do. And we said, we need to see Wayne. I said, well, is he a friend of yours? I said, yeah. He said, what's his last name? Stupid. Y'all follow? Stupid. You see, that's what people don't understand. A lot of you guys think that this unity, this fellowship part, is just in the meetings. The fellowship is worldwide. Y'all understand that? Long after we're gone from this beautiful city, you guys are going to be emailing, driving me crazy, and we're going to be on the phone talking and visiting. And that's our little circle of friends grow. And some of you will never experience that, and that's what I want to talk about this hour. I want to encourage you to get in the middle of this thing. We were talking about it a minute ago, Simon. We were talking about friends of ours that had relapsed. Most of the people that have ended up relapsing, at the end of the day, there was what the book calls a lurking notion. Do y'all know that word? I don't know how it translates. A lurking notion. This idea in the back of my little head that says, you don't understand, my case is different. Make sense? I know you have to stay and put the chairs up, but I don't. I know you have to make coffee, but I don't. You with us? No. And if you start understanding that this whole piece is about service, you'll be pushing people out of the way to get the service opportunities. Make sense? The guys that I sponsor, when we're in a big old AA meeting, and a newcomer walks in, I'm watching the newcomer because I can see him coming. I know a newcomer like that. But I'm watching my guys to make sure they're watching the newcomer. Watch the girl, too. Especially if she's from Denmark. Watch her. But you better be watching the door. Because if one of my friends, proteges, gets him before my guys get him, we're going to have a talk after the meeting. because you're making me look stupid here. You're making me look bad. You know, I want my guys to go get them. See? Because I want you to experience the beauty of this. That's where we're at. I want to make a difference with you real quick. I want to show you something. There's a difference between working with others and sponsorship. Okay? Sponsorship means that you have had to work the steps yourself. You can't show somebody how to do a 4-step if you haven't done a 4-step. Shame on you if you try. You can't talk to somebody about making amends if you haven't made your amends. You have to have some practical experience. But the book, again, I'm going to tell you it's on 129 in our textbook. At the very bottom, for these people that say you can't work with anybody for a year, it's rampant in the States. You in other words, you need to be sober so long before you can help somebody else. And that's exactly opposite. I mean polar opposite of what the book says. Bottom of the page in our book it says, even if he displays a certain amount of neglect and irresponsibility towards the family, it is well to let him go as far as he likes in helping other alcoholics. During those first days of convalescence, this will do more to ensure his sobriety than anything else. You follow? They didn't do that with me for 7 years. They said, you're the newcomer. You're the most important person here. Come on, guys. What did we read earlier? Selfish and self-centeredness, that's the root of the problem. I think that it's all about me. We're like big ingrown hairs. You know, we're all turned inward. That's how I know the guys I'm sponsoring are starting to see the daylight, because their head, you can hear it audible, you know, out of their butts, you know. Oh my gosh. And then they start noticing other people, and oh my God, they pick things up off the floor and they start to wake up spiritually. Guys, the problem is not drinking. The problem is staying spiritually awake. Would y'all agree with that? Because if you're just not drinking one day at a time and miserable, you're not sober. And you're not going to stay sober long if that's the case. So what's the solution? It's not to do another 4-step. I get people all the time. I think I need to do a 4-step. Buddy, you just did one 3 weeks ago. You know, we just finished a 5th step. What do you? I know, but I just feel out of sorts. Well, you might want to turn the TV off, get a little exercise. You follow? Or better still, do exactly what the book said, work with another drunk. Yeah? Look up in the very front of the book. This one I'm gonna hope somebody will translate. Bottom of page 14, top of page 15 in Bill's story. I won't keep doing this, but this is important. I was years in the program before somebody showed me this. 7 to be exact. In Bill's story, this little guy named Ebby Thatcher, 12 steps, Bill Wilson. He's got a few weeks, the archives are full of the stories around. He's just got a few weeks sober, and he gets on a bus and finds Bill Wilson. They used to drink together. You with us? He didn't go sit at the AA meeting and wait for the little guy to walk in the door. He said, I know a drunk that needs some help. And he went and 12-stepped Bill Wilson. Y'all with us? He tried to carry this message, is what the book said. And he worked with Bill Wilson. He worked with Bill Wilson through the steps while he was in detox. He said, my friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. Particularly was it imperative to work with others as he'd worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said, and how appallingly true for the alcoholic! ! For if an alcoholic fails to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. Did you get it? Maybe I misread it. Unless he prays 24 hours a day. No, it's not what it said. Unless he keeps his triggers list close at hand. No, it didn't say that either. I think I was right the first time. Guys, how do we grow spiritually? We grow spiritually by working with another drunk. And I read this, and I talked to people about it, and they played lip service to it until I actually did it. I was in an AA meeting about 3 months sober, and these guys have got me finally chairing a meeting. I've been in AA for 7 years. I've never chaired a meeting. You with us? Because I don't want to look stupid. Can y'all imagine? And I'm just unbelievable. I'm afraid that I'm going to make a mistake and you're going to laugh, so I don't want to get involved like that. But these guys have got me doing all of that. And I'm chairing a meeting, and I'm being a part of the group. I'm on the cleanup committee, for the first time. They don't want me to sit and be comfortable. They want me to get out of my head and help somebody. So this guy comes in, he's a cook, and he works at a restaurant down there, and I know where this restaurant is. Anyway, he hears me talk a little bit about my experience in being a drunk cook. And so he comes by after the meeting, and I give him my number, just like we do. Here's my number. Call me if you need me. The bastard did. That night he called me, and I never expected it. I'd given my number out before. Nobody had ever called, and this guy called. So I'm sitting at home, and I'm living with this nice girl, and she said, it's that nice young man we met at the AA meeting. And I said, I'm not here. Because I'm tired. I've been working all day, and the last thing I want to do is talk to a damn drunk. I've been there. I went to my meeting today. I did what I was supposed to do. And she just looked at me, really? And I got the phone and talked to him, like, what do you want? And he was fixing to go to work, and he was afraid he was going to drink, and he wanted to talk to somebody until it was time for him to go to work so he wouldn't drink. So he'd have a day under his belt. Hot damn, I think I can do that. And so I drove down. She says, how long are you going to be? And says, I don't know. 30 minutes. Just as long as it takes me to dust him, I'll be back. And as I'm leaving, she throws me the big book. She says, here, you might need this. Thank God. And I go down there and meet the guy, and we start talking. And this is a classic 12-step call. You'll follow? This is the classic stuff. He's been drinking 2 days before, and he's just now drying out a little bit. And we talk a little bit. And I tell him some more of my stories about being in the food business drunk. And he tells me a few of his. And we get to talking a little bit. And I realize that he's really anxious to get a solution to this. And so we're sitting out there on the tailgate of his pickup truck waiting for time to go to work. And we start talking about the miracles of this program. He said, he asked the question that all of you will eventually be asked. He said, how did you do it? You'll follow? It's like fishing, guys. Tell a few stories, get him comfortable, easy. Just like reeling them in, just don't pull easy. Wait till he asks. Wait till he's hooked. And then he asked that question. How'd you do that? You don't seem to be drinking. I'm not. How did you do it? Then pull up real hard and set the hook. Tell him how you did it. Tell him how cool your life is, waking up in the morning and not obsessing about drinking. Tell him about getting your credit cards back. Tell him all the cool things that are happening in your life. The power that's in your life today as a result of being in this program. Don't tell him another war story. But let me tell you about this. It was so crazy. We had this dead armadillo, and we took him over there, and we did that. No. He don't want to know any more stories. He's done. Stick a fork in him. He wants the solution now. Anyway, long story short, 2 hours later, I come home, big book in hand. She said, where have you been? This is before cell phones. I could have called, but I didn't. We sat out there and we talked. He was late to work, talking. We were laughing our butts off, and he was excited about recovery. What happened was, whether he stayed sober or not is another story. He did for a while, and then he didn't. What was true for me is, I walked back up into that apartment, and she says, what happened? Because you look different. Makes me want to cry. I look different because for the first time in my life, I'd cared more about somebody else than I did about my sensitive little... You with us? My whole head, everything in me, my deportment screamed, I can't help anybody. The counselors in our treatment centers in the States reinforce that. You can't help anybody. You're too sick. You'll follow? You're just brand new sober. But you understand that Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob were brand new sober when they got number 3. Thank God Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob didn't have some old bastard telling them that they couldn't go work with anybody. Make sense? Come on, guys. Myers made a very clear case that God is in the middle of all of this. Who in the hell are us to say that God can't use us? And what makes us think that we have to... We're not counselors and we're not therapists. The point I want to get to you is the main mistake we make in sponsorship is that we think we got to take these people on to raise. If you want to get confused about sponsorship, read the pamphlet, Question and Answers on Sponsorship. If you want to get completely scared of ever working with a drunk, read that AA-approved piece of crap. And I'm saying it from the podium. It's right up there with living sober. They tell you to do everything in that pamphlet except take him through the work. Oh my God. You with us? And this is why so many people don't want to sponsor, especially the women. They got families, they got kids, they got jobs, and now you want me to sponsor somebody? That means I've got to take them on to raise. Guys, listen. I can't sponsor more than one guy at a time initially to get them through the work. 1, 2, 3 guys at a time, I can do pretty good. It's really labor intensive early on. The first couple of months, you're getting them through the work. Fourth step, you got to stop and take some time to do a fifth step. After we get them through that work and we help them organize themselves in the ninth step, there's not much to do. We're going to hold them accountable. But I don't want to set myself up as the answer man. There's a great quote in the book. It says, it's not when and how to give that's in question. He says it's not giving that's in question. It's when and how to give. Make sense? I want to help you get the steps done so you can get spiritually connected. Make sense? And then I back out of the way and I let God tell you what to do. We got too many sponsors out there. Some of you grinding your teeth in here right now, being Mr. Dictator. Well, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. Well, that's not what the book tells me to do. Read it. It says that my job is to get them spiritually connected. Quick as possible, and then let them decide. I can share my experience with you, but that's what I was saying earlier. This is what the stuff that makes it sound like a cult. You can't date for the first year. Why? You're damn near dead. I understand why you don't want to date, but you can't. And then they start telling you what you can't do. You can't take that job. You can't do this. You can't do that. It's like, buddy, I don't know what to tell you. No decisions for the first year. No major decisions for the first year. I don't know about you guys, but I'd screwed up so much stuff. There were some major decisions I need to make in the first year, or I'm going to jail. Y'all understand that? I needed God's help to do it. That's what we were supposed to do. And 7 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, and nobody will help me to understand what this is about. This is not a self-help program. This is a spiritual program of action. That's the beauty of it. That makes sense to you guys? It takes me out of the way of having to have all the answers. Call me. I'll give you some experience if you want to. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you get to decide what to do. What's right for you? Yeah? We're killing people with our opinions. We don't take these guys on to raise. Myers gives a beautiful analogy of the kids. You know, it's like when you're little, watching these cats in the airport with these little babies, and they're carrying them along. They're just like shadows. They're just all over them. Just making sure, taking care, everything's so close. And as these little kids get older, you can see the little older kids. They're over here by the planes playing and shooting cap guns at each other and just having a great time. And mom looks up every once in a while, makes sure they're okay, and just check. But it's less attention. As they get older, by the time they're in high school, if you've got to watch them like that, you're in trouble, right? They flip through every once in a while just to check in. They're out the door again. And that's what sponsorship should be like, folks. We don't take these people on to raise for the rest of their life. At a certain point, they just become good friends. I sponsored Simon forever. We did some work together at one time. Now we just visit. We just hold each other accountable and check in every once in a while. Make sense? I want to go get me a new one. Dr. Bob sponsored over 5,000 guys. 15, 16 years of his sobriety, he sponsored over 5,000 men. Now, do you think he sponsored them the way that we hear people sponsor? Of course not. He did just like them old boys did me. Come in here, buddy. They're going to qualify me. Here's what they're going to do. The first thing I do with the guy that I'm sponsoring, I'm going to qualify the cat. I'm going to make sure that they're really alcoholics. I don't want to have this conversation 3 years from now. Well, I don't really know if I'm an alcoholic or not. We're going to get that straight right now. I want to find out if you're a little drug addict too, because I want to watch you with both eyes, sort of, if you're a drug addict. But I want to encourage you to get over there in the rooms with some good little dope heads too. I happen to belong to some other little drug fellowships, and I want you to be a part of that too, so that they can help you, so you can identify. You with us? Some of you guys do really well with that. I want to find out if you're a sex addict. I want you to get you in a proper room with people that understand sex addiction, eating disorders, gambling. Make sense? I want to try to be of most service for you. AA is not the buffet for every illness out there. We treat alcoholics, is that right? Come on, it's pretty arrogant of us to think that we can fix everything. Y'all with us? I was talking to the beautiful woman at dinner at lunchtime today. We were talking about eating disorders, and so prevalent in the United States. And it's like, buddy, it's just arrogant of me to try to talk to someone about that if I don't have any experience with that. It's just asinine. Make sense? My job is to try to help you get connected to somebody. If you have an eating disorder in here and you need to get connected to somebody, trust me, I know hundreds of them in the fellowship. And I'll hook you up with them and they can help you. Just coming from me, it's just my head rattling. Make sense? Listen, share what you know. A beautiful woman that had been raped and come into an AA meeting because of stupid counselor told her to go to an AA meeting and share it. She got in trouble in a men's meeting that had no experience with that. Wow. We got her out of there so fast it'd make your head swim. And we called half a dozen sisters that we knew that could come get her and help her get past this. Make sense, guys? We're supposed to be of service. We don't have to have the answer for everything. And when you stop setting yourself up like that, you'll be better off for it. If I don't know the answer, trust me, you call me and I'll call my sponsor. We'll dig around till we find the answer for you. But all you can share is your experience. I'm going to qualify them. I'm going to find out if they're in the right room. I'm going to explain the urgency. First thing, first night, I'm going to explain the urgency, what we're going to do. That question, how many of you were asked, are you willing to go to any length? Any of you guys ever were asked that when you got to the program? And I said it, we laughed about it earlier. Everybody says, yes, I'm willing. I'll give you my firstborn. I'll do anything. Just help me. And then about 4 days later, and this ego starts to rebuild itself, now they're not quite so sure. You with us? You can see them coming out of treatment. They first got there and they're like leeches. They're hanging on to you and there's some snot boogers running out. And they're crying and, oh my God, help me, Chris. I know you can. I've heard your CDs. I know you can help me. Buddy, we'll get you there. Are you willing? And explain what that looks like. Yes, I'll do that. Because I know in about 3 days he's going to see you. I know in the 3 days he's going to hook up with a fine-looking woman. And you can tell. They'll have the sunglasses on. He's sitting in the back of the room, arms folded. Buddy, you were kind of late to group today. What happened? Busy. 3 days ago, you're crying, begging for help, and now all of a sudden you were busy. You follow? He comes to my office. We talk about it later. I saw her coming out of detox, and I knew that God sent her to me. Now, she had those little paper slippers on, and it was just so cute. I just could. Oh, my God. And I know danger. We got trouble now. We got problems. So I explained to them right off the bat what any length looks like. We're going to work the steps quick. Yeah? When did it become okay to let the newcomer set the pace? I'm just asking the question. They're the sick ones. They're the ones dying. But they're going to set the pace? That's why some of you guys get burned out. Some of you women in here, they're doing all the sponsoring. Some of you guys in here, they're doing all the sponsoring. You're getting wore out because you're letting them set the pace. You set the schedule and you set the pace. Y'all follow? We can bend a little bit. But this idea of letting them set the pace is nuts. Because when they relapse, you're going to get blamed for it. Trust me. Been there, done that. After we get them through the steps, my job is pretty simple. I'm going to hold them accountable. My job is to help them be accountable in the meetings. You with us? I'm watching them. I'm paying attention to what they're doing. We talk about AA etiquette. Y'all know what that looks like? How do you behave at an AA meeting? Y'all have been so good today, it freaks me out. How do you? No, I haven't seen anybody texting. Guy sitting in there and I'm watching him and all of a sudden, last week he was real attentive, but this week he's got a girlfriend and he hadn't listened to anything anybody said because he's back there click, 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 texting, making all kinds of racket. AA etiquette. Pay attention. Come in on time. God, it drives me crazy when I go to these AA meetings and the guy sitting in the very front has got to get up and pee 6 times in a meeting. Every time somebody starts to share, he's up to pee again. Buddy, if you got a little bowel problem here, bladder problem, go sit in the back. AA etiquette. Make sense? Because you're not there for you selfish bastard. You're here for the newcomer. Are you setting an example? Even if you don't like what the speaker says, why don't you go by and thank the chairperson for speaking? Why don't you with us? Come early. Help set up. Stay late. Help with the newcomers. You'll follow? Down in Texas, we got these, what they call noon meetings. And that's where all the old-timers go because they can't stay up as late as we can stay up. And they ain't going to get up early anymore, and that's for sure. So they go to the noon meeting. And so all the old-timers, thousands of years' worth of sobriety, converge on an AA meeting. But where are the newcomers? They're not there. They're going to come at 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. Y'all understand where I'm getting with this? I'm not going to go any further than that. Shame on them. What's our job? Why are we here? When that clicked in, guys, I got crystal clear with this stuff. We talk about all that business. We talk about the AA literature. There's some great literature out there. We talk about the traditions. My job is to explain that to newcomers so they understand what our singleness of purpose is, what our traditions are about, and try to help them see that. That's what I can do. It doesn't take long to do, though, guys. You can work these guys through the steps very short period of time. Make sense? You've got to go a little slower. It's what my brother said. You're welcome to do that. Let me tell you. One of the things that I don't do, the only place in the book it really gets pretty definite about this, is that we don't chase drunks. You come in and say you want help, I'm going to help you. When you get ready to not play this game, I'm not going to chase you down. I'll call you. You relapse, I'm going to call you and check on you because that's what I do. You follow? But I'm not going to waste my time running after somebody that refuses to do what we ask them to do. Guys, if you don't hear anything I say this weekend, hear this. AA works. Every time. If you do the work, you stay in all three parts of this program, you will stay sober. On top of that, you'll stay happy. You'll stay reasonably okay in your skin. That's been my experience. But everybody's not ready to do this yet. And if they're not, they get the opportunity to go out and try it some more. I don't want them to, but if that's what they got to do to convince themselves to come back, bring it on. Does that make sense? It really makes some of you uncomfortable. But I want you to focus on the ones that want it. Make sense? Because you'll take these pet projects on and they'll burn you out. They'll break your heart. Yeah. I can't keep you sober. I wish I could. I'd be rich. I'd get, my gosh. I don't even want to go there. But that's just not the case. Let me tell you what happened. In 87, when I had that spiritual experience, I'm 2 weeks out and I'm working the steps. I've completed a 4-step and I'm working the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. These guys have got me helping out. They had me go into halfway houses. They said, "Here, get that box." And I says, "I don't think I'm ready to talk at this halfway house." And he says, "You're right, you're not. But you can bring the books, like lift them, tote that barge." But they were letting me do that, to be a part of this, to see what happens, guys. Because if you can't see people get well, you're not going to stay in this deal. Make sense? It's by helping that I get help. That's what so many people don't understand. There's old literature in AA says, stop being the patient as soon as possible and become the doctor. That make sense? This nice new lady that got here today that picked up the book, bless you. I didn't get your name, but thank you for coming. And I'm so grateful that you were here with us and got the book. And here's what will happen. The path will narrow here, and you will either hear what we're saying and get active in the program, or somebody will kill you and tell you to slow down and go slow. And if you slow down and go slow, you'll never feel the passion about what this is about. Make sense? So y'all know what in the trench means? In the trench. In the trench means this is where the work is. Y'all ever seen these utility workers out here and they're digging? And everybody's in the trench working. In Texas, you'll have one little guy, 2 little guys in the trench digging, and they got 7 or 8 guys standing around with clipboards, like this, kind of pointing fingers, a little bit more over here. Usually at least 7 or 8 guys standing on the outside. Union boys, they're checking it out. Make it, and then they got the little guys sweating their butts off in the trench. You with us? Listen, the beauty, though, is that the excitement and the power is in the trench. Standing outside with a clipboard looks good. It looks like it would be more fun. You don't get as dirty. It's not near as time-consuming. Make sense? I, for years, didn't sponsor. And these guys started to ask me, and I started working with them, and I had some successes and I had some failures, but I've never not done it. I've always been there to try to do that. I've told this story 1,000 times coming out of, we have a club in Ingram we bought. It's called the Outpost. How country is that? Square, stupid country. Outpost. And And there's AA meetings that meet there, and Cocaine Anonymous clubs, groups meet there. It's just a club where we can go and don't have to worry about the cigarette butt so much. You know how the churches frown on us sometimes for that. But pretty cool place. And I come in early, and sometimes sitting with the guys I'm sponsoring, that's when I do the work. I gang them up a whole bunch at a time. We'll take 5 or 6 guys, and we'll meet all at once instead of one-on-one. I need some one-on-one. No, you don't. We'll work together, and then we can talk later. But I come in early to work, and I'm making a pot of coffee, and I hear some stuff in the back room, back in the main meeting room. I've seen this 1,000 times. And I'm making coffee, and I hear some guys talking back there, and I look around the corner, and the room's dim, and there's one light over where the chair, it's like a table like this where the chairperson sits. And I got one of my guys that I'm sponsoring, he's got his big book open, and he's got this little new guy. He was there Wednesday night, and he's little new guy sitting there, and you've got that look on his face. Y'all know the look. Brand spanking new. Got him a brand new big book, never been creased yet, and he's sitting there, and my guy's eating his ass. He said, where's your marker? I told you when we meet together, I want you to bring a yellow marker so that you can mark these pages, And I'm thinking, I had that same conversation with this kid 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I'm telling him, where's your marker, And I'm laughing, because here it is, And I go back and finish making some coffee, and I'm watching it percolate, and I'm hearing them talk. And I can't help myself, and I look around the corner, and my guy says, he's looking at the new guy, and he says, okay, so are you ready? The kid says, yes. I can't tell it without crying every time. I hear the chairs back up on the floor. My little guy's on one side of the desk, and he's on the other side of the desk, and they get on their knees. You with us? And they got his book opened up so the little guy can read the 3rd step prayer. He says, okay, we're going to do the 3rd step prayer now. And I back up. I can't see them. I don't want to interrupt them. And they do the 3rd step prayer together. They're holding hands across the desk, and they do a little 3rd step prayer. And right across from these guys, right behind them, there's pictures of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. The cats started this whole thing in 1935. And they got big pictures of them in our AA meeting, and they're sitting there. And I'm sitting there making coffee, and I sponsored this guy. And because Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob cared enough to write this stuff down and take the heat and stand for something, I got to get sober finally in 1987. And because I got sober, and for no other reason, because I got to get sober, that kid got to get sober. And because he got sober, this new little guy is going to get sober. Y'all see how this works? We are so quick to go into our meetings. That's all we want to do in Texas. Let's tell how we got here. Let's tell all the bad things we did. Let's all the crap that we stirred up out there while we were drinking and drugging. Just think for a second. The simple fact that you're in the trench with us, that you're not drinking and drugging today, simple fact that you're sober, how much of our lives downstream are going to be changed simply because of that? The kids that are not going to be abused, the jobs that are going to have full-time employees for a change, the whole world that's going to be affected simply because you got spiritually connected. Not because you put the plug in the jug one stupid day at a time, but because you made a commitment to get spiritually connected. That's how it works. It's not going to happen sitting on the sideline watching, taking everybody's inventory. It's going to happen in the trench, getting dirty. Nobody gets let off the hook. That's the beauty of it. That's what I keep trying to say over and over. I touched on it last night. You don't have to be Chris Raymer. We don't want you. We got enough Myerses. We got Simon. We got one. Y'all understand it? We got, check. You're it. Thank you. We don't need another one like you. We need you to be you. We don't need you guys in meetings talking like me. We don't need you beating people up with big books. We need you to walk in with a big smile, carrying a book, armed with the facts about yourself. And you'll sit down, and the prayer is this. And don't say it unless you mean it. Say, God, bring me somebody to work with. Bring me somebody I can help. And then when the little cat comes up and pushes me out of the way to get to you, y'all follow? That's the best. And he walks straight up to you and I says, I heard you sharing that meeting. Buddy, you sound like you got this thing figured out. Can you help me? Don't look around and ask permission. What needs to come out of your mouth is, yes. Don't say, I'm sorry, I'm only 2 days sober. Yes. Then hurry like hell to finish the steps and stay ahead of them. That's what we do. Make sense? God takes care of this. God brings these people to you. Don't dust them. I can't help anybody, you victim. Yes, you can. This makes some of you so uncomfortable. I'm putting you on the hot seat because I got to tell you something, folks. We need you. I'll say this and close. I had an old guy named M.L. Rowland. He's passed away a long time. He was about 30 years sober when I got sober. And he was not a circuit speaker. He was just a responsible, active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he had sponsored a gazillion guys in his day. And he's 30 years sober, and I'm about 6 months sober. I'm going to this group across town. And I'm washing coffee. This is back in the day before Styro. And we were washing coffee cups and ashtrays and stuff. And he said, I want to thank you so much for staying and helping me. Everybody else is downstairs chasing women, and I'm not. I'm too shy to do that. But I'll stay up with this old geezer and wash coffee cups. And he said, thank you so much for doing that. He says, Chris, in fact, I need to make an amend to you. He says, I haven't said this to you before. I heard you sharing in the meeting, and I saw the excitement in your face and the idea about being sober. And I just wanted to thank you. And I says, I got to tell you point blank. Y'all listening? We need you. He didn't say some stupid, keep coming back. It works if you work it. He didn't say that. We're going to say it in a minute. I'm not knocking it. I'm saying what he said had depth and weight for me. Because nobody ever needed me to do anything. Y'all understand it? I felt so useless when I got to this program. And he looked at this little skinny guy with one eye, we need you. We need your experience, strength, and hope in the trench with us. And I was trying to do that, and he thanked me for doing that. And that's exactly how I'm going to end this. Guys, we're preaching to the choir here today, as we usually do in Alcoholics Anonymous when we do these conferences. The big book thumpers are here. Y'all knew what y'all were going to get when you got here. And that's why I've got to tell you point blank. He says, thank you so much for doing that. You guys that are carrying these big books around and you're in meetings and you're sharing, you're taking the shots. Can you imagine going into a meeting and introducing yourself like the book says as a recovered alcoholic? You will take the heat from some old bastard that doesn't understand what's in the book. See, what I know today is I don't have to live off a spiritual experience I had 23 years ago. I get to have a spiritual experience in Denmark today. And next week it'll be in Houston, Texas. I don't know where it'll be. In my garden 2 days from now. I get to have a current experience with God because I stay in the trench. I stay active. Y'all understand that? I can't rest on my laurels and expect the spiritual experience that I had 23 years ago to carry me on through. I've said it from every podium I've ever spoke at. Every woman in here that sponsors people that have been sober, that have stayed around the fellowship, thank you from the bottom of my heart. There's lots of women sober in AA. There's lots of women, but most of those women don't have a clue how to finish this work. I'm not taking shots. I'm saying it's difficult when I get email after email from women all over the world looking for people who know how to finish a 4-step. It's tough. We put special pressure on the women. You've got a wife, you got kids, you got a job, you got all of this, you got to juggle it, and you've got to do this stuff in AA. I'm just saying thank you so much. All of you old geezers, thanks for coming. I got to tell you, thanks for staying. I know how to stay safe 23 years. I do. I've just done it. I can tell you. 24 is a little vague. How am I going to find out how to stay 25? I'm not, unless there's somebody there with 25 years of sobriety. Does that make sense? You little young guys, I'm going to tell you all over the world. Myers will talk about it tonight. What we're seeing is a whole little resurgence. Our membership in Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time in the last 10 years, the last 2 years, has started to increase again. We have been steadily declining in membership in Alcoholics Anonymous worldwide. We still sell 1 billion books. There's no question about that. But our membership has declined over the last 10 years. Only in the last 2 years are we starting to see membership increase again. Why? There's more of us staying sober now than ever before. Simply because we've got a resurgence, a bunch of little young Turks coming in, working the steps, standing for something. Yeah, you can do it. All I can say is how cool is that to be a part of something like that. And it starts not from this podium. It starts from one little alcoholic working with another little alcoholic. And pretty soon you look around and you've got 40 or 50 little guys in your lineage. And it is the absolute coolest thing to walk into that AA club and see what you just showing up and suiting up and doing what you're supposed to do has done downstream. for every one of you, we need you. Thank you so much.